Okay, gentlemen, it's 1:30.
Test. Well, good afternoon, everybody. We fixed our mics, and it is time for our workshop for February 28th. And as usual, we're going to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing we have is our Health and Wellness Committee, which it looks like we have two here for our Health and Wellness.
We just have one.
We're flying solo.
For strategic ideas or what you have, so.
Do you guys have a copy of this?
We do.
Do you want one? And
I have it right here looking at me on a computer.
well, some people don't like it.
And so, Commissioners, while she's passing those out, just to differentiate, there are two committees. One is the Wellness Committee, one is the Benefits Committee. The Benefits Committee takes a look at what insurance are we purchasing, holidays, vacation days, stuff like this. The Wellness Committee has been, and Bonnie can tell you more about who's on it, but they're working to increase employee health or better employee health, because one of the reasons our insurance rates continually go up is because of our high claims and the number of claims that we have. So the long-term thought is that by improving employee health, we should have theoretically fewer claims in the long run and be able to mitigate against some of those costs.
And then piggybacking off of that, improving employee morale is also going to improve our services that we offer our community. And it's going to also hopefully help reduce the burnout situation and help reduce the turnover rate. So there's a lot of impacts of physical and mental health, and that's what we're trying to address. So today, is the city coming, or?
I extended the invitation, and he said he would either be here or send the Parks and Rep guy, but I don't see them, so I
Do you
don't know if
want
they
me to
got busy
wait
or
and
what.
Rob go ahead and see if he shows up, or what do you want to do?
Well, that's going to be Rob and planning together, so go ahead and start. He can always catch it on YouTube.
Okay. So here's some maps that I have of city properties that have Russian olives and or salt cedars. The total acreage that's infested within the city limits is 48 acres. Right now, the cost of our phreatophyte project is coming out to be about $750 per acre. Let's see, average labor. So we're estimating it's going to take 336 hours to do the initial removal of the phreatophytes on these 48 acres. Something that we're proposing is a long-term plan with the city. It's going to be over the course of, let's see, like 6 years. For the first 3 years, each year, we're planning on, well, we can remove 16 acres of phreatophytes. And then the city match could be $3,500 to help cover the cost of expenses. That's kind of equivalent to what we're charging the landowners right now. And then we're going to ask the city if they can give our employees and their family members a discount on the rec center membership passes in exchange. What?
In lieu of money?
Yes, in lieu of the project. Because right now, yeah, it costs about $750 an acre, and we're only going to charge them $3,500 for the 16 acres, which is saving them a bunch of money. And then on top of that, we're requesting a discount on their memberships. Does that make sense for you guys?
It does, but I guess the question I have is then how do we make up that money? Because there's still a cost associated, whether it's to them or whether it's to us. So I understand what you're trying to do, and it's an incentive for our people to get a discounted rate to get into the rec center for mental and physical health. However, how do how are we backfilling the county as what we have to do for the program itself?
Yeah, so currently the funding that's supporting the project, even in 2022, we can get away with covering all of our expenses as long as we have that $30 per hour match. So that's, right now, that's what we're getting, and we're still gonna ask the city for that, so that'll cover our additional expenses. But if the city were to do the work themselves or hire somebody, obviously it's gonna be a lot more significant. So this is a better deal for them to hire our crew to do their work. Does that make sense? So we still have the expenses covered because they will be doing that $3,500 match.
Bonnie, if you were able to push this program and the city went for it, are you going to have adequate time for your crew to mitigate against the free out-of-fights on other private property that we're trying to address?
Yeah, definitely. That's why we kind of pushed it to 16 acres. That way it's a doable time frame that we can handle. It's probably going to take less than a month to do 16 acres, probably 2 to 3 weeks with the equipment that we have. So that'll give us sufficient time to handle our other workload as well.
Did you prioritize any of these properties?
Denny Lake has been a priority within the city, so that's one that we're going to do because we also have done work in that area. And then the property, gosh, what is that called? The natural area going up Lebanon?
Carpenter?
Carpenter.
That's our other priority. So we're going to prioritize areas that we've been working on in the immediate area, and then we'll work out of that.
So their property at the water treatment plant is what, like down the list of ways?
Well,
Out on
we
County
might-
Road in?
That might be a higher priority because we have been getting a lot of complaint calls about the noxious weeds coming off of that property. So
Okay.
that one might be a higher ranker. And we have been doing work in that area as well. So those are probably the three.
Highest
Yeah.
priorities.
And then if the city has priorities for themselves, I mean, we can definitely work it out. But this
So-
is just the out-of-the-box idea, and like, hey, if we work with the city, maybe they can help us get discounted membership prices for our employees.
So let me ask you a question, and you may not be able to answer this, but if we have 240 employees, how many of them would really be willing to take advantage of this? And would we be better off just to look at that independently from the county and say, can we get a 50% discount? Or, I don't know, I wish I had them here, and then we just go ahead and contract to go ahead and do their work anyway, because it's still in Montezuma County, and we still need to get it taken care of.
Yeah.
But if you have, what is a season or a yearly pass for a single person, like $250, $300?
Yeah, something like that. I had it printed out in an email, but I didn't bring it with me.
I don't know, I guess I'm open to have the conversation with the city and try and come up with something, but I'm not sure that we wouldn't be better off just to maybe offer that within our own county employees, you know?
Doug, do you have any thoughts? Doug's on our wellness and health.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know how many people, what the actual cost value, because you don't know the number of takers.
Right.
Then you might just say that's an incentive, we can pay a certain amount to incentivize it. But I know that Dean Palmquist was also trying to get a grant for Denny Lake area, but I don't know what happened with that in order for the YCC to come in and do that work. But touch base and see where the current Parks and Recs director's at with that, if that work is actually scheduled to be completed or not. I know they tried to get a grant for it.
Yeah, I'm not sure the status of that. And they were trying to get a grant for the Southwest Conservation Corps group, and they would have to match 50%, and I think they charge $3,000 a week for any kind of management, because we've used them too. So they'd be matching $1,500, which is a lot of money, and they don't even have the equipment. But yeah, we should touch base. them, but yeah, I just thought it was a good idea, something that we could partner on and develop that relationship to support our employees.
I think partnering on this is a good idea to get rid of the phreatophytes, period. I don't, whether we get a discounted rate for anything or not, to conserve that water, I think is a huge deal to our county. But like I said, without them here, it's kind of hard to have that conversation. And then really, can we do a poll within our own workforce to see who would actually be interested in it? And,
Okay.
I'm just talking out loud. I'm just,
Yeah, that's the reason we have these meetings, is to talk this stuff out. Looking at Denny Lake, that falls under Parks and Rec at the city. The one at the water treatment plant is their water department. And the others, I don't know where it would fall. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be Public Works, or I don't think Parks is part
probably
of this.
Public
I would think
Works.
it would be Public Works,
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, do you want me to approach the city and just kind of talk about these things? Or would you want to be involved in that conversation?
I think it'd be difficult to approach the city without the commissioners behind it, but I think maybe myself and the city manager, or one commissioner and the city manager, could have the initial discussion. Then ultimately, if everyone thought it was a good idea, it would have to go to their council as well.
Correct. So I don't have I like the thought process of keeping our people healthier so that we don't have those extreme payouts that we're having on our insurance portion of it. So if we could incentivize that somehow, I think it's a good idea. However, without the city here, it's kind of hard to say what they are thinking, and I don't want to. I think it's a good discussion to start, and then we can carry the process once we actually have them in the room to talk about it.
Perfect.
So we have workshops every Monday. It's not like we want to kick it down the road a long time, but
No, yeah, I get
just
it.
stay aggressive and keep going after it, and we'll come up with something that
Yeah, they've
makes
got
sense.
workshops every other Tuesday at their meetings, so that's not a problem going to them either.
Okay,
But if you could just do a survey for us internally, maybe that's something that we could
Yeah.
figure out just internally
See if
without.
anybody's interested before we go
yeah,
down this
definitely.
trail.
Definitely,
We can send out a survey pretty easy, I would think.
yeah, for sure. All right. Doug, you got anything? That's all I got. I'll see you tomorrow.
No test?
That's it?
That's it, no test, I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay.
You ready?
I got
Test
my
is
book right
tomorrow?
here.
You got the book right there?
Yeah, see, look, right here. See?
Look at that.
Is that the new one?
And
No,
I've
that's
got,
the CD.
I've got my books right here, so I think we'll pass the test.
All right, cool, well, thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. All right, I gotta get back to my agenda now. So James will talk about a little bit about the campgrounds down below the dam, and I see that Commissioner Garcher is on the Zoom link, so welcome, Commissioner. And James, with that, I'll let you go ahead and have the mic.
Is that working? Yeah, we're
Yeah.
good. Okay, gentlemen, I just wanted to kind of go over the IGA that we've got with Dolores County regarding the maintenance of the Cabin and Ferris campground down the Lower Dolores River. The Forest Service a few years ago was proposing to close both of those campgrounds down. We felt that it was valuable to both the Dolores community as well as Montezuma County to keep those open. And so Dolores County was really, I think, the one that was really kind of the one behind this, that approached the Forest Service and just asked them, what can we do to keep this open? And we worked with Dolores County on that. And as far as we were able to line up with the Forest Service, there was a certain amount of maintenance activities that we needed to do down there, which included, mowing some weeds, weed control, a little bit of grading, painting picnic benches, picnic tables, things like that, and then also putting porta pots in if it was needed. So then this year, I got a billing from Dolores County, and so this was for part of the work that was done down there. My understanding is that we had a 50% cost share relationship set up with Dolores County, and so I think that that's what we're seeing with the two bills that we got. One is a bill for the weeds, and the other one is a bill for doing porta pot rental, as well as maintenance supplies. So the two bills come together to be just a little $1,879 is what the total amount is on these two bills. And then we have got an IGA that specifies what each county was supposed to be doing. Montezuma County, it says under number 3 on our, that's the correct one there, Shaq. Under number 3 on page 2, it specifies that we're supposed to be doing the weed spraying as needed down there. And then under B, it specifies things for Dolores County to be responsible for. Where my confusion comes in is getting back to that 50% agreement that we had with Dolores County. Sounds perfectly reasonable to me. I mean, both of these campgrounds are in Montezuma County, but I don't think anybody really, it's not in the writing, so all we're working from is memory on what that agreement was. And so I thought that maybe Commissioner Garcher from Dolores County might be able to participate today and give us a little bit of perspective from his memory on where we're at with all this too.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Yeah, James is spot on there. Our person that sent out the bill and did all this is not at work today, so unfortunately we'll have to follow up with her tomorrow on exactly what went out and where, but I do know that we've enjoyed this relationship for a couple of years now, and it's worked out very good. Those are both very nice campgrounds.
Okay, so, thank you, Steve, appreciate that. But I guess I have a question here. So Bonnie, are we spraying the weeds down there? In both campgrounds?
Yes.
And that's under,
So I don't think Steve can hear on the other end unless she's mic'd.
It's a little tough hearing, yes.
we'll move it to a mic, Steve.
This is Bonnie. Yes, we've been spraying the campgrounds. I think we've only been spraying them once a year, so nobody's told me that if there's a bad weed problem up there or not recently.
Okay, I don't know that we were aware of that, so Montezuma County sprayed it at least once.
Once a year.
So I guess
Okay.
that would be my question, as far as you said, there were two bills, James, one for weeds and then one for general maintenance of the campgrounds?
That's correct, yes.
I guess, Steve, and I'm not, because this is brand new to me, but why are we getting a bill for weeds if we're spraying the weeds?
I will have to check into that, Jim, and get back with you. I don't know that we knew you were spraying, but I will have to check into that and get back with you.
Okay, that's my first question, because if we are supposed to be spraying them and we're spraying them, I mean, obviously, I don't have an issue paying our 50% at all, but I don't think we should be doing more than that. So if you'd check on that, Steve, I would really appreciate it, and then get back to James to follow up with us.
Absolutely, yes, I sure will.
Okay, and we are absolutely spraying the weeds down there per our agreement.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And I was told by my guy that sprayed them that it really wasn't bad and there wasn't much to spray either.
Okay.
So he said it looked really good.
Maybe we're double tapping the weeds down there.
Well, and maybe we are doing that, which obviously, I guess, hasn't hurt anything, but we probably don't need to be wasting a bunch of time or effort on anybody's part. And we'll definitely want to make sure we hold up our end of the bargain, Steve.
Sounds good, yes.
Okay, and then what was the other one?
The other one was just the maintenance.
Yeah, this looks pretty simple. This is basically just for the porta-john rental and a little bit of maintenance and supplies, so I definitely don't have any issues with this. I'll give this to the other two commissioners and see if they have any questions.
No, I don't. I'd seen it come through, and that was my question, if we were actually spraying down there, and that question's been answered, so I look forward to Steve's answer tomorrow, Commissioners.
And I guess I would just point out in the written agreement, it looks like Dolores County is the one that's responsible for the porta-john down there. So, I don't know whether we had some other oral arrangement or what, but, I mean, when you look at the written agreement, it looks like we're responsible for weeds and they're responsible for the toilet.
Is that how you remember that, Steve?
Let me, I will study that and get back with you guys. I don't know if we were sharing that or what we were doing, but there again, I hate to do that, but I'll have to refresh my memory and get back with you.
And it looks like it's just like, just Steve, for your information, it looks like it's like paragraph 3A is Montezuma County's duties, and then paragraph 3B is Dolores County's duties under that written agreement. Again, I don't know whether there was an understanding outside of that, but just in that written agreement, that's what it indicates.
Correct. And yes, that, I do read that, Ian. I do read that. I will get back with you and clarify this tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else, James?
No, I think that's it.
All right, well, thank you, Commissioner Garcher, I appreciate you being here, and we look forward to your follow-up with us.
Okay, thank you, folks.
All right,
Appreciate
Steve.
it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gentlemen?
Okay. All right, next.
You want those back? James?
Do you want these back, James? Okay, next we have some road, well, I guess we're going to have kind of
We can go to the roads first.
two together. We'll do road impact fee, rate changes for churches, and then we'll go into the vacation of Road S, which is going to require both of you gentlemen, so.
Would you like to do the vacation of Road S in Areola town site first, so then they don't have to hang out?
That's fine.
Does that make sense, or? Just in the interest of people's time and information. Well,
So-
I'm gonna give the history of this, since this was your idea. We've got a applicant on Road S west of 145 that is looking to subdivide off 3 acres of their, out of the 14. And so this led to emails from the neighbor to the west, and so Rob took a look at the road to verify their facts and figures, and then I'll let you give his recommendation, and
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell them what the email was said?
because you don't remember.
No, I remember very well, but it
So-
wasn't said to me.
Right, so part of this process, reason we're doing this together, part of the process is tomorrow, you guys, we will request that you guys set a date, a minimum of 30 days out for a public hearing. So we'll put the public notice in the paper. Since we're having one vacation of roads, we also have an applicant that's looking to vacate 4th Street and an alley at Areola, the actual town site, Mahaffey's Warehouse. And so this ties in with this application to subdivide. We'll schedule all those on the same day, so the subdivision and vacating Road S will be at the same BOCC meeting, and that way the same people can show up once and cover everything all at one time. On Road S, the neighbors to the west emailed us that it's all historic, 100-year-old, this and that, and that the road isn't wide enough for 2 cars to meet. And so Rob took a look at it. The fence lines are right up to the road, bar ditches. There's irrigation water that runs, that's the wrong one, Shaq.
No, that's the aerial one.
It's the one off of 145, right?
Yes.
Is the one
You
that,
gotta remember, this road's 12 foot, 13 foot wide, then you got about a 2-foot ditch with a fence. So it is narrow, so keep that in mind as we go through the history on this a little bit. So.
Right, and so what Doug came up with was the history right there that Shaq's showing you. Probably one of those deals where once bladed, always bladed type scenario from way back. It is on the county map as a green signed road, but Rob sees no reason, because to make it an actual up to standards Green County road is gonna take a lot, starting with taking over property.
Yeah, I think that would be my biggest fear, was you'd have to go in and condemn the property, or they'd have to give up 20-some feet of property each side, or how it would work out. And then you're looking at building ditches and utilities that have to be relocated, and the road widened out to 24 foot, and it's just not there unless everybody wants to give up 4/10 of a mile of property, including some front yards and some trees and all that. So I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think it's worth the county spending this money to do this when it goes no place but to one driveway or 2 driveways back at the very end anyways. It's more like an old lane. Back in the old days, probably took you to a apple orchard or something back in there, and it just ended, just an old lane.
so,
Is there any reason that it couldn't be just an unmaintained county road? I mean, is there any reason we'd have to bring it up to a full
Well,
green
I think-
road? I mean, we have some roads in the county that certainly don't.
I don't know. I think the only reason I said vacated is because of the threats of lawsuits and suing the county and suing the other people over all this, and I just made a comment, just turn it back to a red road, then let them take care of themselves, because it's nothing to us. The county, it's more of a hassle for the county and cost than it's worth. We don't get enough in our federal funds or our highway funds to take care of it anyway. 4/10 of a mile on a little gravel road just don't pay for itself.
Yeah,
And we've had to fix some things in there, and it's very difficult to work. We did fix the drainage, one major drainage a couple of years ago, and that was tough. We had to really work at that just to get a culvert in there, so anyway.
because the
It's just one of
fences
the
are
roads.
basically 30 feet apart at best,
Yeah,
fence to fence.
Maybe even closer, 25, yeah, 24.
So it's a green sign road right now.
Mhm. But I think the biggest problem, the biggest fear, not problem, but the biggest concern I have is coming off of the highway to Road S where it turns west. I'm not real sure who has jurisdiction on that. Doug, did you find anything on that with CDOT? Because it's boundaried out at CDOT right away there. You can see off the
Yep.
highway where it's a red line going up and turns
Yep.
west.
I see that.
And I'm not sure that little north-south stretch of Road S might be in CDOT's right away, but it also leads to probably some issues with NBI and their easements along their ditch canal there too. If you look at the big map, we don't want to cut them off either. So that little short north-south run would probably have to stay in our jurisdiction to maintain NBI, access to a canal. If it's CDOT's right away, we have no jurisdiction on it anyway, so. It'd be only from there, it turns west and goes out 4/10 of a mile or 3.5 tenths that I'd be concerned about.
That's the
there.
one you want to turn.
Red, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to bring that to the table and just show that there is those issues there, so.
Yeah.
Just, as part of the history, I mean, it's an extremely old road. It was clearly defined on the 1936 road map. It had orchards, it was along the irrigation canal at that point, so it was probably a pretty important agricultural area. So it existed a long time. It wasn't just didn't just pop up one day. It's at least 100 years old. And we do have a 60-foot right-of-way. Clearly, we claim a 60-foot right-of-way, even though those fences are in closer together, which is not uncommon for county roads for fences at times to be built closer than 30 feet off the center line.
Do you know if there's a road petition that goes along with this?
Yeah, I didn't do that level of research for this. I looked into it a little bit a couple weeks ago and then this morning. So that's really the question, is there a road petition or is it prescriptive use? If it's prescriptive use, it's very, very old. And I assume that the easement for for the irrigation canal, I mean, that exists. You know, that's existed for an extremely long period of time and doesn't probably depend on the county road right away for that. However, there are power lines that do traverse, do whatever that sticks.
It's over there.
So yeah, I mean, there's power lines that traverse up here and then across all the way on the road. So when you do consider vacating a property, obviously it's extremely important to involve Empire Electric, Montezuma Water, and Montezuma Valley Irrigation in that conversation. As far as this triangle, what I saw so far, this is why I probably have to get a surveyor or somebody involved in it. I believe that this was carved out of this tract, and this tract probably owned across to whatever the CDOT right-of-way is. So this portion may belong to this property, but that's a little bit
No,
unclear.
it belongs to the people in the north by the name.
No.
No, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm backwards on that.
No, this is pretty clear. This property is north of this section.
Yeah.
It's a
So
section
that-
line. This may belong to these people.
That little triangle may go,
Actually, the triangle don't give us a name, it doesn't give us a landowner,
No,
which is a good
it's-
sign it's government
And it-
somewhere, yeah.
It might be drawn incorrectly in that sense. The assessor's office had it assessed at 11.44 acres, which is this. Doesn't mean that there's a history of deeds that shows that.
so if we have a 60-foot right-of-way right now, they've just built their fences into the right-of-way.
They were probably there in the 40s, I mean, way back.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the trouble, another problem is the power line runs on the north side of that green road right on the fence. And so if you're gonna take 30 foot each way, you're going to have to get Empire Electric to move over, or you're gonna have to take everything south to get the width. And now you're getting into condemnation of properties and all that, because you're going beyond your 30-foot legal rights. It'd be very expensive, either way you do it, it's gonna be expensive, so.
But ultimately, we wouldn't necessarily have to make it a wider road. We could maintain it as an unmaintained county road at its current width,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I mean, that would be the other option. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full 3 or 4 lane road. I mean, we have unmaintained roads all over the county.
I don't know that, I
So-
can't argue about that, you're right,
Yeah.
we could just leave it alone too. Just
So
leave it
how would
alone.
that affect the subdivision if that's what they're trying to do? Because
But what is the
within
subdivision? That's my question. One
Well,
house, one.
a subdivision per the land use code is, there's a minor, a moderate, and a major. A minor is one lot.
The 30
So you
days
split
public
one lot and you
notice
create 2, and that's a subdivision.
Right, I know, but the public notice is just for somebody's kid to take 3 acres of land, do we understand that?
It's a subdivision.
It's not 10 lots of 3 acres apiece, it's no more,
Right.
so, and,
That's where the term minor, major, and moderate
but
come
old
into
school
play.
thinking for me is, what's one more car on the road that ain't right anyway? You know, so what's with the lawsuits?
I'm just,
you know?
I'm just
I know.
asking, what does the land use code say, and, because if we abandon it, then there would be no more, you really couldn't add any more to that without maintaining the road.
It would be a red sign road. We would leave it named as a red sign road, not a Green County
But
road.
does that then have to be upgraded to our county specs that other subdivisions are?
Not necessarily. If you're doing a major subdivision, then you're required to, but most of those properties that are smaller than, 100, 200 acres are all created with exemptions.
There is no other access even in place, so we can't abandon it and then essentially landlock those parcels back there without.
Well, no, we would turn it to a red
Red
sign
sign
road.
road.
We wouldn't abandon it with no access.
You would have it all,
I-
have the access.
This
I'm
is-
I'm just not seeing the advantage of abandoning it. I mean, it can exist as it currently sits. We don't have any we don't have any legal responsibility to make it any different than it currently exists. We don't gain anything by abandoning it. If we keep it, then we maintain the option if at some point in the future we need to for some reason expand the road. I mean, it doesn't look like there'd be any reason now, but as long as we have the road, we can always expand it. I mean, it's a county right-of-way, and ultimately, I mean, my thought is when we have a county right-of-way,
We don't abandon.
we don't necessarily abandon. I mean, we haven't made a practice of that historically, at least since I've been here. And I think even before I was here, I don't think there were a lot of county right-of-ways that were abandoned. Maybe Commissioner Copenhaver could speak to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna
more,
look
but-
to my left and my right. What do you guys remember? Because
I just remember one in 8 years.
Where this is a green sign road, I'll guarantee you what, those people are not gonna want you to change that road to a red sign road.
And give everything back to them, so.
No.
I'm a
Well,
little,
you're not really giving anything back to them.
no.
All you're doing is you're taking away the maintenance from him.
Yeah.
You're taking away his responsibility to maintain this road that's been maintained for all these years in this county. If that was my house down there, I wouldn't want that.
You're right, you're right.
So,
I mean,
I get it, and
you know, Rob,
guess-
is there room at the end to turn around and,
There, just a little bit, there is enough room, but it's tough. It's a real
Okay.
tight spot there.
well, see, and maybe, I don't know where this division's going in, maybe we can work on something in that area. Oop. Touch that thing.
Just a hair to the west, shack.
You know, to help you guys
Yeah.
at the end of that road for a turnaround and that sort of thing, because, you know, if they're doing some division down there, maybe we can make something work out where you can turn around better and that sort of thing.
You can see the turnaround.
As a stipulation.
You can see the turnaround, and it's, you can get turned around in there, it's pretty.
Oh, I
tight.
see.
But we can get
I
the road
see.
turned
We can-
around. But the old school was, back in the old days, just open the gate and drive in and turn around on the guy's place, but we don't do that no more, we stopped doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just a liability we're not gonna take. So they've kind of made that a little better. I think my biggest fear when this all came up was, is if you're gonna start suing us over land or over road widths to get more people, then just take the road and fix it yourself. That's my common thought. I agree with you, though. I wouldn't want it changed either, so my thought was, well, maybe if we say it'll be a red road, they'll all get along with each other and divide the land and give the kid 3 acres and everybody be happy, you know? So maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and I'm not super concerned about a lawsuit in this context. I mean, you know, certainly anybody can sue us, and people do sue us, but ultimately, we have no legal duty to maintain that road at one width versus another width versus another width. That road's been there, that's a county right-of-way, we claim that right-of-way, and we can maintain it however we see fit. And so, yeah, there's always a threat of litigation. I mean, we've seen that with other roads in the county. We've got cases with roads right now, but I think we need to be careful about abandoning roads based on a threat of litigation, because to tell you the
Yeah.
truth, I mean, there's a lot of folks that would be more than happy to litigate and probably would litigate if they thought it might give them the possibility that the county would maintain their right of way.
Yeah,
Is this a school bus route?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Could-
If it is, we turn around out there at the.
Yeah.
Or they make them pick up at the road. That's probably because it's, how long is that? Half a mile, quarter of a mile?
4/10.
4/10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
on the
it's
highway.
pretty short. I guess I kind of agree with Ian. I mean, we haven't made it a practice of abandoning.
Well, I think,
County right-of-way
I think
roads.
Ian explained it very well, is if they subdivide this, that don't mean we're gonna make the road any wider.
No.
It is what it is. The
That-
road is what it is.
That then has to
And I'm
go,
perfectly happy to leave the road as it is if we don't get into some litigation over a subdivision. So, and then, I guess if they wanna subdivide it and make the road wider, they can come to us and pay for it with their subdivision, you know?
sure.
But it is gonna have to, I mean, the fences are right there. There's not even room to make a bar ditch to get water to drain. It's right there. And I don't think that's right, but that's historically what we got. We don't argue about it, we just go play what we got and go on with it, so. Anyway.
And I appreciate that because you're trying to be a good neighbor and get along with all those people. You know, however, if we slipped off the road and goofed up, you know, we can repair it. We still have that 60-foot to work within if we had to. Not that we're going to do that at all, but I don't think it's a good idea to abandon a road.
I'm just trying to keep this out of court. I go to court, you know.
Well, and I can certainly appreciate that too, Rob. Don't stop doing that.
saw that too. Okay,
Good, I'm good. I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on it, so there you go.
Okay.
So, good.
all right. Anything else?
Works for us.
That'll work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the people have been there 30 days of their public notice to subdivide it, and I just wanted to let you know what the road was, the condition of the road, and it is tight, and it is very tight. And to widen it out, I might come to that someday, I would think would be the people subdividing it into 20 more lots. That's when I think it should be addressed, and let the subdivision pay for the road improvements, you know, to be honest. We'll see what happens.
Right, which typically
But
it
this
always
time
does.
it's
The-
one person, and one more person on that road won't hurt a thing, so. But you can't pass each other. You can't do that. There's not enough room to do that.
Right, because it's, what'd you
It-
say,
it's-
12 feet
it's-
wide?
Two cars are 16 foot basically, and it's 13 feet wide, so you gotta wait your turn. So it is that narrow. So it's an old lane, took you to an old farm back there somewhere, and it just got picked up as a maintained road over the years.
You know, what's amazing is I probably passed that road
Didn't even know it was
a
there.
million times. Well, going to my meeting tonight over there in Dolores, I'll pass it, and you see it, and you know that it's that little section that turns off, but I mean, I'll be honest with you, I've probably never driven all the way to the end of the road, but I will today.
It's very pretty area. It's a nice, quiet, large acreage area, and it's nice to have privacy. But it is county road, so if people want to subdivide their little land and use the road, it's their use. That's the way I was trying to, if you don't want to get along with us on that, we'll just turn it red and you can take care of yourself. And that was my point, so. I'm glad you made the decision you did today, because that's the right decision.
We didn't decide anything.
But if you do, if you choose to make it green, I totally stand behind you 100%.
We're discussing today
We're
that
discussing,
we're
that's right.
ging opinions of our
See, these are
thoughts.
things that gets me in court, see?
You need to be a little more quiet sometimes.
Decisions are made on Tuesday, but we're
I don't
expressing,
know why Shaq just wanted me to just use the email I sent in.
we're expressing our
That's right.
thoughts today.
Right. I'm good.
All right.
Thanks,
See you
Rob.
tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thanks,
Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
So we don't need to discuss this tomorrow, we don't need an official anything on it?
I don't,
Do we have another abandonment issue today for the
Yes.
other, does Rob need to be around for that or not?
No.
Okay.
He may want to have input on the road impact fee discussion. Just for the, this one, for churches.
You want to do the other abandonment, or you want to? Shaq
Well,
left it, he left it off the agenda.
well, abandonment's on the agenda, so we
Which one's the other one?
Aerial housing.
we have. it.
Oh.
Mahaffey Garza.
Yeah.
Well, there's the old original plat from 1909. In 1914, they dropped the south four sections, whatever you call them.
Blocks.
Yeah, those 4 blocks. So that's Mahaffey's property. That's where the Mahaffey warehouse is.
Mhm.
Shaq, if you go down to the next one. So there's an overlay that shows you the warehouse extends into 4th Street on the east and then extends down into close to the alleyway on the south.
So what are you asking for on this one?
So the applicant would like to vacate 4th Street, which is on the east, and the alley on the south, and all the deeds, the east-west neighbors would split half of 4th Street, the north-south neighbors would split half of the alley. Obviously, nobody else has vacated anything officially out there.
So does that fence line, which kind of is right on that middle?
That dark line there is the west side of 4th Street from the original plat.
So the fences kind of delineate that anyway right now, correct?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm seeing?
Shaq, zoom in on the east end of the warehouse, would you?
21 feet into Fourth Street?
Correct. And the driveway, who knows what it actually hits.
And we're,
They don't actually encroach into the alley, but if you look at their property extends all the way from 4th Street to 3rd Street.
yeah,
So, and obviously they don't want to make that a road or have it be open to the public to be driving on that.
Well, it's not now, is it?
I had no idea.
Well, it's not a road now, but it's a public right of way.
No, and gosh, that little driveway, if I remember that, that's not much of a driveway there, is there?
Pretty
It's
overgrown
like
with
a-
trees and stuff in
Yeah,
there too.
it's,
No, that driveway's not a real driveway.
no, it's not, not what I, no.
It's a two-track.
It's a- Yeah,
Barely.
Pioneer two-track, yeah. Yeah, that one I do remember.
So the lots on the other side of the alley, are they viable lots still, or are they?
The neighbor to the east, I'm not sure which Honaker it is, but they've been in discussion with them and they're all for it.
It's David Honaker.
Which is
Um,
Lot 1.
Yeah, lot 1 of block.
So then that property line would then move over to halfway, and they each split, so the driveway is gonna be split in half.
Yeah, or it's probably gonna be closer to the east edge of that warehouse building. I don't know, the surveyor doesn't have that precisely indicated.
Right, because we're 21 feet in there
Right.
in an encroachment right now.
And then Shaq, if you'll go up to the top on Road S, they're not asking to vacate or change that. I know Ernie did a survey there on Jenkins to the west and had discussions with Rob. County road's a 60-foot right-of-way, and I believe that platted Madison Avenue is 80 or 100 feet wide. But the building's already built in part of that road right-of-way for Madison Avenue, but just a touch sticks out in the county road right-of-way, but they're not asking to vacate or do anything there, so we wouldn't have to affect the actual width of those right-of-ways as they've been for 100 years.
Lot 9 would be over here.
Don, how is lot 9, like 7, 8, and 9, how are those accessed?
Well, it's all part of Mahaffey's property.
Okay,
These are 25-foot wide lots, so unless you have at least 3, then you can't really do anything. It's the same as Lebanon Town site, which actually had the subdivision platted over it, but yeah, it takes several lots to make up any kind of property.
and so 7, 8, and 9 are all owned by Mahaffey?
Correct.
1, 2, and 3? That's, one of those is Honaker's? Or
No,
did I
on the
misunderstand?
east side of 4th
Oh,
Street
okay.
is Honaker.
Okay, gotcha.
You can go to my map, Shaq, that was just above the preliminary plat. So there's Mahaffey's property that encompasses that alley all the way to 3rd Street to the west.
It looks like most of these lot lines are gone.
Oh, yeah, the whole thing's pretty much wiped out, so, well, Gary Mahaffey's still around, the grandson, Balin Garza would just like to clear this all up and get it all officially taken care of and
Vacated.
recorded, just so that there's not, and that way he's got history from his granddad who started the warehouse and how it all came to be.
So what's the status of the property between, just to the east of the Areola Bible Church? Is it still full of lots?
It would have the actual platted lots from the
Okay,
original town
still-
site.
What about those to the south of the alleyway itself?
Pardon me?
What about those that are south of that alleyway?
That's all the same property owner. He owns everything south and west of Mahaffey.
So he owns that big lot
Right.
that's east of the church.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Over to Fourth Street
talking
east.
two owners,
Mhm.
right, except for the guy to
Except,
the east.
right, Honecker on the east, and then it wouldn't affect the southeast property owner.
The problem I see is, once that thing was platted, I don't know that you can take that alleyway access away from those lots on the south side of that thing. How would they be accessed? I mean, once that plat was established, maybe I'm thinking wrong, but I know we went through this whole thing with Danny Wilkin out at Lebanon. Because it was the same scenario of these lots, and once that township was established, you can't just do away with those lots, no matter what we do, unless, I mean, once they were established, they're established. We have to recognize those things, I think. Now, Ian,
Yes.
he's gonna have to.
But, I mean, yeah, I mean, that they do exist.
Yeah, the lots are
But
still there.
The north end of Lebanon Town site is completely gone from any original streets. It's been built up and there's no going back.
I think the
fixing it.
concern would be is if the landowner were to sell off one of those lots, then where's the access? I mean, we're gonna basically create a landlocked parcel that can't be accessed.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at,
Yeah.
with those lots on that. If you abandon that alleyway,
South.
There is another alleyway between Mahaffey's and the house on the south. If you go back to the plat, nope, the 1909 plat. There's actually a road there, but that may be this, nope, the next block of streets up.
I think when you start to abandon access points and roads, I think you're asking for trouble because you're cutting off properties from access. And, I mean, I certainly understand there's a significant encroachment here right now with the Mahaffey warehouse, but it still is a right-of-way. And
So what would be the scenario for Fourth Street?
Where the encroachment is at,
Mm-hmm.
the 21 feet?
I mean, there's no fixing that now.
That's an 80-foot right-of-way. It could still be a 60-foot right-of-way and eliminate that 21-foot encroachment.
yeah, I mean, you could do it that way.
So these all still have separate,
I think they're all
Legal
still
descriptions
deeded, yeah.
as
And even on our
lots?
GIS map, Mahaffey's is legal description is block 2, lots 1 through, well, it's like listed 7 through 10 and 1 through 6. So they do recognize
That they're
each
separate.
lot from,
So somebody potentially could sell off one lot because they all have a legal description.
right?
yeah, that's the problem you get in. That's why I was worrying about the access, because, I mean, it could be,
Yeah,
Well,
it's hard to imagine somebody wanting to buy a lot that size, but
Then there would be law.
I think you have to keep that possibility open, though.
As long as they
I
don't
do
build
too.
on it, 'cause they can't meet the
well,
setback.
I guess my question though is if it's the same landowner to the south that owns all of that now, and then to the west, and the Mahaffey's own just to the north, if they all agree on it, why couldn't we abandon that? Because they're not, then, once you abandon it, it doesn't give anybody else, you can't sell, it's no longer gonna say tract 1, 2, 3, or 4, it's gonna be a bigger
Right, you would
access.
replat aerial of town site, and it would be like Lot 1A, Lot 2A,
Correct.
and you would remove those individual lot lines because it would be a replat based on common ownership.
I could see where a property owner would
Yeah.
want to do that, to say, hey, I want to get rid of all these little lots and nobody else, I'm not going to sell anything. I mean, I can see
I think that would be the prerequisite before abandoning the road. You gotta get rid of all the lots first.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'm headed, because, I mean, now you have two property owners that agree that I'm not going to sell off 7 or 8 lots or whatever there was there, and I just want it into one big parcel. You're just combining it and not giving anybody ever down the road to ever do that, which, I mean,
How
that
big, how
that
big are
makes
those
sense.
lots?
I
But,
think they're 25 by 75.
so they're tiny.
So they're way under 1 acre.
Well, Lebanon is the same way, but it.
They're the same way at Lebanon.
It still does not matter where they were platted.
Right.
It doesn't
It
matter
doesn't.
what the size was, because it's already done. You don't have any choice. I mean, if, I guarantee what if developer wants to come in there and avert our whole process, he can go in there and buy every one of those lots.
You bet.
And we can't do one thing about it,
Because they're already.
as I
platted.
understand it.
Yeah, because it's grandfathered in.
You know, so, I mean, if we could work something out with them where they were gonna abandon all that, it would be the
It
greatest.
would be,
That would be
I think
the,
it would be better for us, because you're only working with two property owners. You get rid of those lot lines, and it's now one legal description for the entire property and not 9 different legal descriptions. I think that makes sense.
I think that's the way to do it if we're gonna do it, but I think that needs to be done before we look at abandoning that right away.
Yep. I would think that would be the way.
I've seen it also where you do it as part of the same process. You have a consolidation and vacation plat kind of in one with the deeds.
Mhm.
So Attorney McClellan, what would be the process? It's not a subdivision.
So with what?
That's not a subdivision. It's a town. Our land use code does not cover amending a town.
Well, the town no longer
Better bring it
exists.
up with the town board.
I guess that's the deal, because there is no longer a township.
So can it just be a land survey deposit or a town site amendment like they did in 1914 and just show the lots consolidated? And not have to go through a public hearing process?
yeah.
But they would need non-opposition letters from everybody involved.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think they'd have to go through the process. I can do a little bit more research there. But I would think they'd have to go through the process. I mean, the town's no longer there. What you've got at this point is a bunch of little lots. And so if they wanna adjust that and make it all one,
Just treat it as a subdivision then?
well, it's not a
Not a
subdivision.
subdivision, it's a
But I mean the process.
consolidation.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's,
And the vacation
that's your,
process.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the same thing we would do if we were talking about 4-acre lots that somebody wanted to just make into one 16-acre lot.
right.
You know, It's no different than that.
Which we've done that several times, just in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
We've combined lots to make them one big lot. That's all we're doing,
Mhm.
except for there's 9 little lots.
We'll just need to know what the process and all the documents need to be so we can pass that along to the applicant.
We can sit down and chat.
And do you want to cover the east property, Honaker and the old schoolhouse, east of Fourth?
Try and get as many as you can. Be nice to get it all cleaned up. I know you're not gonna be able to, but.
Well, because that's probably on 3 or 4 lots there too,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and if it's accessed by that right of way, then we've got to clean it up. I mean, anything that's accessed, we've got to get.
Right,
to-
anything south of Fourth Street at the alley.
So you're gonna get east and west.
So the schoolhouse does actually have a larger lot, but then there's a little baby lot just to the south of it in the right-hand corner.
This is Fourth Street, right?
Mm.
Right there.
That's a 1 acre lot for the school.
Here? That's not a named street, though. Madison Avenue is totally gone.
Well, the
Yeah, everything's-
Madison Avenue and those 4
Worship,
blocks south
yeah.
of there have been abandoned in 1914.
Washington,
So that would be
Madison, and
definitely
Jefferson.
cleaner, because they're getting a property tax notification for each lot,
I would assume so.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
technically, they probably are. I don't know, because I can't speak to
Until
the
you-
assessors, but they could request to have one tax bill
oh,
on all your properties that
Combined.
are adjoined.
gotcha.
As long as they're not developing that lot and changing it out of agriculture, it'll be taxed as ag until you actually do something with it, I think.
That's correct, as far as I know.
Yeah. So, that's the way it's been done all these years, is
Yeah, so
they've been taxed that way, I'm sure, on the thing. But I tell you, when we had this issue with Danny and Lebanon out there, we really couldn't make him do. He combined lots to make him big enough to put a house on and stuff, just on his own, but he did not have to. At that time, our instruction was we couldn't make him do any of that stuff.
Yeah, it's still a mess that
I
we
mean, he
deal
did
with all the
that on his
time.
own, but we couldn't make him do any of that.
We've actually vacated
And we couldn't make him
street
charge
there.
him road fees, we couldn't do any of that stuff because it's platted,
It was there prior
till
to
it was already
purchasing.
there,
Yeah.
way before our,
I think to consolidate it with you're dealing with just 2 owners is way better to make it one big land mass instead of 11. Well, some say 11, some say 10, but those are real little lots. Kind of that's where I'd be leaning to.
you know why they did those lots like that? Because most people, when they came out here from back east, the way they taxed people out there was by the square footage across the front of your lot. It didn't matter how tall you built something, it was by how many feet wide your lot
So
was.
they kept the lots.
Just the
Narrow.
rich people had the corner lots, everybody else had a real narrow, tall building that they built on, and that's the way they tax people, and they still do.
That's why you
You
have
go
all
back in a
those
lot of
narrow
those cities back
three-story
in
buildings.
Virginia and stuff, and look at them, and they're just like that.
3-story walk-up span that
Yeah,
are real narrow.
and they're real narrow, and that's because they taxed them on the frontage of the property, not how many stories you went up or anything else, just the width of the property. And so when they come out here, that's what they plat it out.
I see.
I mean, it's just history.
That's good to know.
Are you good on that one? Have enough direction out ahead with it?
Clear as mud.
Yeah, I'll wait for Ian's email.
Yeah, we'll get together. I mean, it's just, basically, it's just a simple lot adjustment.
Consolidation
Yeah,
of-
consolidation, just like
Yeah.
we do any other consolidation. So,
That's what I
I
would
guess
think.
we'll just need to, may have to go back to the book and page on when they vacated the south half of the town site,
yep.
because it'll be like the second replat of aerial, the town site, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get together, chat
That
through it.
works for me.
Okay.
We'll get Eve involved. She reviews all the plats from the assessor's office.
Okay. Moving right along. So, obviously you have had a discussion with P and Z.
Correct.
And I guess I'm gonna look to my left and my right, because they've went through this, obviously, with the church out on County Road M that's been there for probably less than 2 decades anyway.
It actually, there's no record of what or how anything was addressed there. I've looked.
So you're asking for church recommendations for?
Yeah, so that's scheduled there in the box is non-residential, road impact fees from the land use code. So we sent that to P and Z and gave them a month to think it over, and we discussed it at our last P and Z meeting. And they interpreted it that, because there's a distinction between if you do the paperwork, a nonprofit doesn't have to pay property taxes. But that doesn't mean that they don't have to get permitted and go through the process in the land use code. So the road impact fees are a one-time, one-shot deal unless they expand in the future. So they were unanimous to recommend it to be built on the same square footage as a school.
And so what we would be doing in essence is amending the land use code.
That
Because this
was
is
No, just the fee schedule.
just the fee structure.
just the fee schedule.
Okay.
When we did this last year, we amended, or we just clarified language on road impact fees for 35 plus or old subdivisions. And we did it as a clarification. I'll let you review that and see if it has to go through the whole process. This is just strictly the fee schedule. It's not contained within the land use code, per se.
My only concern would be, I mean, we're not necessarily amending a fee, we're actually amending what's gonna be charged.
You're creating,
And so it is.
You're
it is
creating a
change.
line
It's
item.
different than just changing fees.
that's back to you again. I don't bring you the easy stuff.
Yeah.
I figure out the easy stuff.
I mean, I think if this is something that we want to do, I think we're going to have to go through the process. I think this has to be an amendment rather than adjustment to the fee schedule. I mean, we're not clarifying, we're actually changing something here.
Well, we're adding another item.
Yeah.
I mean, my first question is, number one, why was it left off? Probably for a specific reason. And number two, I mean, obviously I can count a few churches off of county roads, which county road, highway, there are obviously some, but
If you go back though, the Mormon church on M and Rock Springs off the highway,
there's
it's not
no
addressed.
documentation of anything at all.
And I don't remember the discussions on the.
But this goes back, yeah, this is Kent's
Yeah.
Yeah,
deal.
that's what I'm saying. I'm looking to my left and my right, because this is way beyond, way.
It's Kent's code. It was the land use code, now it's Commissioner Lindsay's code.
Commissioner
Yeah, I don't
Lindsay's
remember
code?
discussions on road impact fees coming up on those. I really don't.
I don't think that really came about much until the mid-2000s. 2009, they actually had a consultant that
Yeah,
did an analysis.
there was actually an analysis done just before we ever started doing those road impact fees and stuff.
Yeah. When they originally started, they would just have the developer pay for so many hundreds of tons of gravel, or like on Lebanon Estates. Yeah, Lebanon Estates, Mountain Gravel agreed to double chip seal Lebanon in lieu as the road impact fee. And that's pretty much kind of how it all got started for subdivisions, especially of that magnitude.
The only thing I can remember about Road M was availability, septic size and the height of the steeple.
Right?
And that's all I can remember.
Well, septic size is addressed by the
Yeah.
land use code, or not land use code, but.
And we waived the height so they
It'd
could.
be an engineer now.
It's an engineered septic system.
Yeah, and I
so
don't,
That's pretty well delineated with the acreage, but
But the engineered septic system didn't start until,
Yeah.
like '06?
about 08, 09, the same
Yeah,
time the
08, 09,
TDRs were
sometime
being
then,
discussed up the Dolores River.
otherwise, before that, we were doing it
Yeah, when the
in-house.
when the TDR system was brought in.
We had
out
our
there,
own,
Had to have an
Sanitary.
engineered septic
yeah,
tank system.
and he designed systems
Right.
and stuff. And then we got into issues with contractors. Anyway, then we just go engineer it, we're done.
Yeah.
I'm
If they were within,
And all
what
of a
was
sudden.
it,
it started
100
costing
feet of the
people a lot
river, they
more
had to have an engineered system.
because of that happened. But
Right.
it's just nothing but,
I mean, one thing that occurs to me is, I mean, when you're looking at the impact of, say, a church versus some of the other things on this list, I mean, a church, you're talking about usually one day of service per week, maybe 2 services a week versus, I mean, a lot of these things, school, hospital, I mean, you're talking about use consistently over a sustained period of time. That might just be something to consider. I mean, it doesn't really bear on whether you can or you can't, but it might be something to think about as you're making the decision.
Well, because a lot of churches double as schools. And is that why they're looking at a school for their recommendation of a 177 a square foot? Or, I mean, what was their discussion?
Yeah, just because, I mean, you do teach during church. Kids are in a preschool type setting at the church. It's just that it fits better than anything else, for lack of a better scenario.
And most churches do have schools.
Correct.
But
I
we
mean,
we can't charge a school that's in a church a road impact fee when it's made. I mean, for instance, Lighthouse, we knew was gonna be a school too. So couldn't we charge as a school?
I don't know if they charged them anything.
But they could.
Well, the Lighthouse Baptist that's there now wouldn't have been charged. It's been there forever and ever.
Okay, yeah.
But that's off the highway.
But that, yeah,
Yeah.
that comes
Yeah,
off the
the
highway.
new
Yeah,
Those
it
two
would
are
be,
right off the
yeah,
highway.
it'd
They're
be a
not off
newer.
of any county
yeah,
roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, off the highway, that one's been there for longer than the code's been in
Yeah.
place.
The one out by near, when did they put that in? When was that put in there?
Man, I don't
You know
know.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I
It's
do.
on his property there.
But it's,
It's usually longer than you can remember.
I'm gonna
If
say.
you think
at
it's
least-
15 years, it's 25.
Been in there, 'cause
It's been there at
I,
least 20 years.
I'm gonna say 30.
It's been there at least 20.
I mean, I'm guessing, but I bet it's 30.
Yeah.
no, I don't think so.
I don't know, it's been there a long time. But that's
Friends
just a
don't
very short,
remind friends that 1980 was 42 years ago.
Is he trying to tell us he remembers his age or what?
yeah, he was born in 1980. That
I was
makes me
born
feel
a
old.
couple years before that even, so.
Just barely. That's why we look for direction.
All right, Rob, what's your thoughts on this? What are your,
Well, I like the idea that their impact fees are not taxes, because I don't want to get started with taxes. But I do think that they're entitled, to- or they're just as responsible to pay an impact fee as any school or anything else we have out there. Whether you call it a church or a school, it's a building, it's a footprint, and they're gonna be using our roads extensively, you know, coming and going, so. I feel it.
but we've got no records of anything prior.
Not that I've come across.
Okay, well, that's something to chew on.
The second phase of the process is gonna be simple, because they're gonna put in a school. We can handle that one.
Right, because it's already addressed. It's just a matter of the place of worship.
Right. And I guess, Ian, if we need to go through the amendment of the land use code process,
I'll look at it. I think we probably do.
you'll just, yeah, let me know, and
Okay.
if there's other items, it's better to do more than one thing and piecemeal it.
Yep.
I mean, what do you guys think? Just,
I think we let Ian research it and see what he comes up with.
have you looked at anybody else's land use codes? What do they do as far as churches?
You know, I haven't. Road impact fees vary so much that it's not,
But do they have it in there? I guess
Oh,
is the-
I don't
the
know.
question. Can you do a little bit of research just to find out, you know, in the 5-county area to see what it is? And I understand your your point, Rob, you know, there still is a significant impact on that road, and it's probably only 1 or 2 days a week, but, you know, how big
It
is
could
it?
be 80 or 100 vehicles
Could
that
be.
one day a week too.
It's a substantial, impact, even though it's 1 or 2 days a week.
Sure, and like I
100
said,
cars.
it's, depends on the size of the church, and that's why it's being broken out as a square foot, but, yeah, let Ian check on that, and then.
I mean, we can certainly do it. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind about that.
Just how.
And I think we do it through an amendment of the land use code. I'm fairly certain there.
Sure.
And so
And
it's
that-
just a matter of what you guys want to do. I mean, if that's something you want to do, we can do that.
I'd like to see what does La Plata County do, what does Montrose County do, what does some of the neighboring counties do, and have a better idea. So if you could
Okay.
do a little bit of research on that, and I'll also try and do some research on it.
Fair enough.
Okay?
I think that's all the road stuff.
Actually,
Don't run off.
see you, Rob, thanks.
Thanks, Rob. I got your last minute addition here too.
I remember reading this, but I was
So,
not.
so this is on tomorrow's agenda for a variance for the, one would be the size of a lot to subdivide. And then, the other is for a setback distance on a house that was started in 99 and finished in '03. But per the, survey there, go up one shack. That house there to the south is 1.4 feet off the property line. So the question is, and you can read it in the narrative, it's all a family deal, and they're just wanting to subdivide it so that in the future they can sell off the south parcel and the house.
And that's the only reason.
For lack of any more background that,
So the variance is to have one lot that's 1.47 acres and one lot that's 3.01 acres.
right?
And then the lot to the north, what does that say, 40 feet?
Yeah, it's,
So it would comply with
it meets the 30-foot setback.
so it's just the variance would be, well, two variances, one for the house and the 30 feet off the right of way.
And then
And
one to
then the
the
lot
3 acre
size.
minimum.
And they own the property to the south of that also?
They own, that's all one lot now. But it's 5 acres, but it encompasses all of County Road 21, so they lose a half an acre in that road right of way. So the net's 4.48.
But who's to the south or down on the screen?
Below this parcel,
Yeah. what it says.
another 70-acre parcel, something 60, 70 acres.
Same property owner or different property?
Different.
Oh, different.
Property owner.
I guess that's what I was saying, is
So,
why
yeah,
can't
when,
we just,
when this came in,
move another
oh man,
30 feet?
it's been over a year and a half ago. I suggested to Danny to do a boundary line adjustment and pick up an acre and a half. You don't need the variance for the setback on the south, and if you've got your 6 acres, then you can just subdivide it, and you don't need a variance. But in a year and a half, it's back to where we started. So he will be here, as far as we know, tomorrow, and he can elaborate on that, but I just wanted to give you the heads up. Really, the basis is to just sell off a smaller parcel and a house in the future.
And I think that's where you guys have to be careful, because when you give variances, they have to be variances for a reason. And if we're just going to give a variance here, then, I mean, we're
Yeah.
gonna be looking at a lot of these that are similar. I don't see anything unique about this situation that would necessarily prevent them from picking up that extra acre and a half on the bottom and making it compliant with the code. You know, I can see this situation popping up again and again and again. And, I mean, every time, if we grant this variance, we got to treat similarly situated people equally. So I'm not sure, I'm not seeing what makes this one different than, or unique, or,
I've probably had a half a dozen phone calls in the last 3 months on people with 4.4 to 4.8 acres that want to subdivide. Same reason, they want to get some money while everything's high priced, and then they don't want to have to take care of it.
Are these the same people that opposed amending the land use code to have a 1 acre minimum?
I can just tell you, when we went through that discussion, when we had that discussion, I don't know, when was that, a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe?
2019.
And because we had heard that people wanted to get them reduced, and when we proposed it, that changed, people came out of the woodwork.
It wasn't just no.
No, it was, there was a lot of no, there was a lot of opposition to it, and that's why we left it off. So, although I understand every situation is different, but I think that
The application states that there has to be a hardship. There has to be a delineated reason as to why this variance request is being sought. There
So-
has to be a definite reason.
And I think the narrative is trying to express a hardship, the way I read it,
Correct.
is kind of what it's trying to do. So,
But is it a hardship if this guy will not sell that acre and a half?
Supposedly, they had a conversation,
I
but
mean-
I think that the actual owner recently passed, so I don't know if somebody else might be more favorable to an acre and a half. Just south of there, it's nothing but a rock ledge and sagebrush, so it's not like he's given up great pasture land, but
well, and again.
what a guy wants to do, he wants to do, you know.
I mean,
His
my
own problem.
concern is, this is a 4.47 acre parcel. There's a lot of these around the county, and
That's
they're
one-
probably adjoined
one
by,
lot.
some of them are adjoined by landowners that maybe don't want to sell. Well, that's the type of thing, we have a 3 acre minimum, you just can't subdivide. But if you got 4.47, you can't break it into 2, 3 acre pieces.
and I'm just going back to what we dealt with 2 years ago,
Yeah.
because this room was full of people telling us, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. We want to keep it 3 acres minimum, so,
You know, we had this same issue about whether that's a hardship or not, because the guy next door won't sell anything.
Right.
We had the same issue before, so I just brought that up because it was an issue. We discussed the same issue before,
Right.
whether that's actually a hardship or not. That was the question.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's really about how you guys want to treat it. Is it a hardship or not? Because if you treat it as a hardship here, then you're going to be treated
be a
as a
hardship
hardship all the time. And so, that's really what it is. You've got to treat these things equally across the board.
can you pull up a map just so that we can see the GIS view, Shaq?
Yep.
But that person is now, or that's probably going to change hands?
Yeah, I'm not sure the whole makeup of any of these. There's like 3 family members on the 5 acre parcel. Did you look at the address, Shaq? If you want to search it, look under Porter, in the top right-hand corner under owner.
It's Carlene Porter.
It's which Porter?
It's Carlene.
I'll just go back to Lebanon and do it the old fashioned way. You guys ended me up somewhere.
You need to go way to the west.
S and 21, I
Yes,
believe.
21.
There you go.
It's right there, though.
So it's there in the corner.
That's right there.
Let's go.
Well, that fixed that because that all is in a conservation easement, I think. So he couldn't sell him 1.5 acres if he wanted to.
Not if it's in an easement.
Calhoun's is in a conservation easement,
Conservation easement, he can't sell it.
so he couldn't sell him 1.5 acres if he wanted to.
We never
So
got
it doesn't,
that
it
back.
doesn't matter,
Yeah.
I think it's in that. Now, don't quote me on that, but I think it is in a conservation easement.
Gosh, I'm,
I guess that's another topic we could get into someday.
You just want to keep it simple today, huh?
Well, land use code covers everybody in the county until they want to do a conservation easement, and then we have
They're
no
exempt from
oversight.
everything.
They just
Yeah.
go and do it, and nobody knows what they've done, how they did it,
No public hearing process.
no public input, no comment,
And we have no idea.
and I don't know, Commissioner Lindsay and Commissioner Copenhaver might remember the arguments from before. I don't know the details, but I understood it wasn't pretty. A little contentious on who had power and who doesn't. But if we're gonna amend the land use code,
I know that some of the conservation easement stuff is, I think, in state statute. And so I don't know how that, I don't know exactly what those statutes say. I can do some research, but my guess would be it's gonna be difficult for us to do a whole lot with
to
that.
have any
Yep.
input,
Yep.
so going back to the letter on this, I mean,
well, you don't have to make a decision today.
no, and we're
I-
not making a decision today anyway, we're just
I heard
talking
a
it through.
decision.
Oh, you heard incorrectly. You should have been born after 1980 and maybe you'd be
Better hearing.
better hearing.
Not so millennial.
I don't know, man, just to create a development that has not been there or existing, I think that's where variances come into play, but this is creating a variance. So the whole family is living on the property, which is fine, nothing wrong
Right.
with that.
Right.
Well, the mom and the sister, the brother's not. It's just the mom and the sister.
I think the premise was the sister came to live with her mom until her mom passes, and then she's gonna take her mom's house and unload the other south end, more or less. My word's not theirs,
Okay, well,
but the narrative's there, you can review it.
and I think we really do have to be careful, because like Ian said, you know, we were told pretty significantly no within the last 2 years. And it was a hell no. And this would be absolutely creating a variance for less than a 3-acre lot, and I think we're gonna get ourselves into a real jam. I'm not comfortable.
There would still be the variance for the setback.
I understand the variance for the
Yeah.
setback, but that's pre-existing
That's
since
different.
'03.
Different.
That's a different scenario, but to move the line to where you can actually sell that piece of property as a 1.4 acre lot, then I think now we really have opened up a huge can of worms that they told us not to open up that can of worms. And you guys, now you can look at me this time because that was a conversation that we had in 2019 and it was
Well,
was
a lot of people watching that.
kind of
including
brutal.
myself,
Anyway,
Saying, don't do that, don't do that.
Lots of people here, too.
Yeah.
and we didn't do it. We took that off the table. All right. Next.
Budget amendment talk.
Okay, item number
So-
3, we have A, B, and C.
So our copier lease, planning actually covers the lease of our copier for every department up here that uses it. When we were doing budgeting last year, let's just say administration or accounting suggested that we add a new line item under,
Which we did, and it didn't transfer, under professional services,
no,
Yeah.
maintenance contract.
maintenance contract.
Yeah.
So we added that into Cassell, and somehow when Cassell transferred over to the budget, that line item disappeared. So right now, we don't have that line item or that money in our budget for the
So-
copier lease for this year.
that's a
So does
simple
anybody
budget
have it?
amendment that we can do at the same time as one we've got to do for the sheriff.
$4,500
So we
buy a
just-
lot of crayons and paper.
We just left it off. Which copier is that? The one in the vault?
In the vault,
Yeah.
the one that's under lock and cover in the vault.
Okay. SmartGov annual fee.
So on our, we get invoiced in November, payable in December for our annual SmartGov contract. And that did not get entered. Well, for one thing, I spent 2 months arguing with them because they gave us like a 6% price increase without any notification or anything, no discussion. They just invoiced it, so I fought them on it. They agreed to maintain the contract amount from the previous year, but that invoice did not get entered into the system, into 2021's books. So now we're gonna have the 2022 fee, as well as this fall, we'll have the 2023 fee in there. So whether you want to wait until November to amend the budget, or just do it now since we know it's coming.
Irrelevant to me. We're waiting on one from the sheriff. As soon as we have that, we can do them both at the same time.
Okay.
And they are projecting a 5% fee increase every year. So right now, our contract was $10,390 and, well, the invoice in the fall that'll cover 2023 is actually more than that because I'm covering the 5% I didn't let them have this year, plus the 5% they'll want to charge us for next year, so we're projecting to cover that.
So $345 a year. How long? Do they have is it graduated and stop in 6 years, or it's just?
No, when we started this,
projected?
they estimated that there probably wouldn't be an increase in 5 years, and in less than 2, we saw them try, so. Speaking with their sales guy, that's our rep, he said just moving forward, figure 5% per year. Because we have to start budgeting in July and August, but we'll see if they want to communicate a little better and give us some notice or what to project, but that's the best information we've got right now.
Okay. All
And
right,
like Shaq said, this is all just budget amendment discussion. It's just so we can get everything accounted for at the time we actually want to amend the budget.
okay. All right, item C, road impact fees, Attorney MacLaren.
Well, and I just want to clarify, this says that I recommended that we could add an administration fee on septic permits. That, we can do that. I'm not recommending necessarily that you do that. That's an option for you, and Don can explain that. But I just wanted to clarify, this isn't something that I'm necessarily recommending that you do. This is an option that's out there for you. So,
What he did say is that you can't use any road impact fees to go into general fund money.
Correct, because those are specific
Yep.
to roads.
Yep.
Which I think
Correct.
we're all pretty aware of that.
We would have to amend the land use code to do anything different.
And I'm not even sure that amending the land use code would necessarily allow us to do that, because road impact fees are also defined in state statute, I
Yeah, I was
believe.
gonna say, I
And-
think
and
that's all by
they're really
statute.
specific to roads, and so
Right.
it's not something that we could use for administrative fees, even if we were to. I mean, we really couldn't amend the land use code in that way.
And it works both ways, from general to
Yep.
RIF.
Supposed to.
Okay. So,
The only exception, I would say, when we're going from general to road and bridge, is because Bonnie's department, for whatever reason, when they created the noxious weed department, it was set up under road and bridge, so it's nested in the road and bridge fund. But a lot of the work that she does is on private property, so those cost shares and grants, you can't use any road money to do anything on private land.
correct.
The only part of her stuff that can be paid from road and bridge is what they spray on county roads. So other stuff, at other times, we have to move general fund money in to cover other stuff on that. So it actually would probably make more sense to move her out of road and bridge fund and put her in the general fund and just have her bill road and bridge for what she sprays on county roads, just to keep that cleaned up. But that's
So,
a
yeah,
whole
that's a
other-
different, let's
We're
not
off
cut into
topic
those
now.
weeds.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, but that maybe is something that we should look at.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was recommended by the auditor as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so let's get back on the,
Okay, so, I guess, so we're talking about septic system administration fees, so what are we talking about?
So, just to bring Commissioner Copenhaver up to speed, from our discussion previously on our department, about 40% of our time is accounted for in either researching road impact fees, collecting them, trying to collect back road impact fees. As you've seen, 2016, 2017, 2018, a lot of stuff got missed. We don't try and go back further than that, and it usually only comes up when something else on that property or close to that property brings it to the forefront. But so what we were looking at is with the whole budget and comparison of salaries with like positions in other counties. Since there was a major shortfall there, I had the idea to do the admin fee on the road impact fee, since that's where 40% of our time's involved. But since that's not possible, then Attorney MacLaren didn't recommend anything. He just said one item to look at could be on septic permits, because of the fact that a septic permit usually triggers everything else and us chasing road impact fees, driveway permits, because a lot of people start with their septic system for some reason, at least the design and their in their project.
Okay, so our.
Only reason this all, is relevant is because of our budget, was shorted considerably last fall for salaries. And this would just be a way to, offset part of that, or all of it.
How many new septics do we do a year?
A lot.
A lot?
100 plus.
And each of those have to have 40% of our time researching.
Because a lot of people have built without contacting us. They've even put in septic systems without going through anybody. But we try and treat everybody the same, and if you built and you owe them, then we try and collect them.
Does that include repair fees too?
No, that's strictly a permit from the health department.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there are different costs associated with it. If you're going in to fix it, it's
Yeah.
it's already been
Replacement-
permitted.
Repair and replacement are different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Two totally different permits. A permit for a new septic system, I think is what, $450?
400 for a standard 3-bedroom,
For a standard
residential.
system.
maybe even a 4-bedroom residential. 200, I think, 150 or 200 is usually a repair, but that's all through the health department.
Well, I think that's gonna come into what we're gonna look at next is our budget and sales tax discussion, so, although it's not a recommendation, it's we can or we cannot do it.
It's an option. I mean,
Right.
basically, planning
Right.
came to me and they said
It's an
they
option.
wanted to use the road impact fee, or they wanted to get an administrative fee on the road impact fees, and that's not possible by the law.
Right.
This would be some way to
Right.
get some money to offset the time that they're spending. So it's an option, absolutely not a recommendation. I mean, that's,
It's a suggestion.
I mean, the other option would be just to adjust the salary without addressing it as a fee on a septic, but,
Which is why the sales tax discussion is what's next.
I mean,
Because that's we
well, the way that I understood it when I was talking to planning is that they spend a lot of time on this stuff.
Sure.
And that fee's not really accounted for when folks come in and apply for the septic permits. And so, if that's something that we want to do, that's an option that's out there.
Right.
To basically have the public pay for some of the time that is being taken to.
You're not gonna, if I'm understanding you correctly, if there's 100 permits, say, on average, maybe it could be a little more, a little less,
right,
but what would your intent be of 40% of adjusting that? 40% of the fee now, or what?
it would just depend on at what level we're trying to offset salary time. So what happened is with the whole, comparable salaries and all that we went through, so planning was down $15+ an hour. And so through the whole budgeting process, $550 has been made up, but there's still a big shortfall and a big hole there.
Correct, and there were holes left in a lot of departments. It
But
wasn't-
also,
It wasn't just planning.
if you look, and I just glanced at a couple, and Shaq and I have talked about this 4 or 5 times. In just 2 departments, we found where they shouldn't have had anything, and they got, up 10 to 12,000 more in their budget. So in other words, some of the high spots got higher, and the low spots didn't get filled in.
So if you just take 40% of that permit fee, it's $160. And this is just some real basic, just
Right.
general, and if you multiply that by 100, it's 16,000, which if you look at those comparisons, I don't think that does that anyway. Does it?
It doesn't do it completely, no.
Not, I mean, because that was, okay. Well, we'll get into this next discussion, and then we have that as an option. Not a recommendation, it's an option.
Yeah, I already had a fight with the attorney over the word recommendation from CDPHE. So I sent him to Ian.
What is CDPHE recommending?
And then I'm also gonna ask you too, what do our neighboring counties charge for fees? Because I can tell you right now, typically on average, their fee they're gonna pay for engineering is between probably $1,500 and $2,000.
Right, but we don't, that's all
Yeah,
independent.
that's independent. We
That's
don't-
outside of our office.
I understand that. I'm just talking, it still goes to what the
Overall
consumer
cost.
has to pay to put in a septic system. So if the design and the permit starting up front is just $3,000, and then the design creates another $15,000, we're now looking at,
Right.
I mean, at some, I get what you're saying, but we also have to look at the end too, to how do we make it, how do we blend it all together?
Sure. I understand.
Because the engineering fees are not gonna go down.
No. And we're not gonna stop requiring that.
No, we're not going to. I think it was a good decision you made back then. And for the reasons that you made it was pretty sound. So.
It's a very good decision.
Yeah, I just think that we need to look at all options. And I'll just leave it open with that. So with that, we can, if you have nothing else, we're gonna take a 5-minute recess and then we'll be back.
You want me to make some more notes and come back?
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Cause I gotta get my budget book. You gotta get Gerald. I think you've got yours there. Gerald, kind of where some of these conversations started, originated from, because.
All right, we are back.
Okay, we are back again. Thank you. Shaq, if you want to go ahead and start this for the budget and sales tax conversation. This is basically to try and help Commissioner Copenhagen understand where we were at doing our 2022 budget, and then how the proposed salary adjustments that we came up, the 3 counties that we used, La Plata, Montrose, Archuleta, how those came up, and then what we actually ended up with an official budget for 2022. Then it leads us into the conversation of our revenue stream for the sales tax that we have basically put in our survey right now that was completed the end of December of a 1.9% sales tax. And then it's going to kind of show you where we're at, because right now with the reduction in the oil and gas industry, and I don't see that changing unless we start becoming energy independent here, it's going to continue to decline, and eventually it will go away. So with that right now, if you guys all have your budget book, we have in the general fund, we have the 15,990,735. Road and bridge, we're at 7,407,947.
And I just want to clarify, when you say we're at, these are the projected expenditures for the year, not a balance in the fund.
Correct. Right. These are all projected for the 2022 year. So you can read those right there, and if you want to, if you turn your book into the general fund, the first, you can kind of look at it as what we have in the general fund as far as departments, and they're earmarked there.
So
what we have coming in, and then what our expenditures are projected to be. So with that, Shaq, I'll let you take over from there.
So the nuts and bolts of the situation is that when you look through the funds, we have about $4 million more in expenditures than we do in revenue. Now, we do have a decent reserve in the general fund. We're projecting this year, let me go to the balance sheet of where we're projecting the year will end. Give me 1 second. I'll bring up a different spreadsheet. So we project that we'll end the year with about $14 million left in general fund, which is a significant amount of money. However, if you continually spend millions of dollars more than you're taking in on a long enough timeline, you're going to be out of money. And so the options before us really are, we start getting into these expenditure items and looking at everything we can possibly cut, or we have to increase revenue. So we did reach out to Kinder Morgan and heard back. They were down, we're down 36% in Kinder Morgan revenue for this year. We reached out to them. They are projecting that they are still, this year now, going to be 25% below 2019 revenue still. So that doesn't show any sign of getting better through this year or, when I say next year, I don't know what their production's going to be, but I know next year they will be taxed on what they've done this year. And so it's not getting any better this year or the following year as far as that goes.
And the other thing to think about there too, which I'm sure as you guys both are well aware when you were commissioners in the past, that it is a finite resource and eventually it will run out. And I think that we've already, went beyond what they projected it would be anyway. But as these start to decline, we have to, like Shaq said, we have to look at, okay, what are we going to cut, or how do we backfill this? And then along with the other thing of the unfunded mandates that we're dealing with, Senate Bill 217 for the Sheriff's Department is still a mandate that we have to make sure that we are in alignment with by 2023. Now, they are going to buy cameras and some of that stuff for us. However, once it's purchased, then the burden then becomes upon us for the renewals of them. In
Maintenance,
2 to 3 years, they're outdated and they have to be replaced. It becomes a pretty big fiscal note that we're dealing with. So,
and I would tag on to that by saying it's not just our continuing operations that we have now to deal with. There's other projects that should have been planned for years ago to be completed and haven't, that there's no money to make things happen right now. For example, the jail is continually at 100% capacity during COVID, and you're all aware, I don't need to drag up the arguments that the DA and the sheriff have had in the journal. I don't want you guys to take sides on that, but with these current restrictions, there have been times where arrestees have been turned away from the jail because of restrictions and not having a place to put them. So there's also expenses that are going to be upcoming. Prior to COVID, the jail was at 100% plus capacity of what could actually be housed there. We're continually at 100% of what can be housed there during COVID restrictions. And so there's other projects not being done that we need to find a way to fund. And in addition to that, the general fund has to play shortstop backup to all the other funds. If something happens where, for whatever reason, the state of Colorado doesn't disperse for public health, or something doesn't come through for social services or whatever, those bills that are still obligated to be paid out of other funds still falls to the county. And so my idea with this conversation today is to discuss what angle this commission wants to go. Do they want to begin the work of pursuing a sales tax? And if so, there have been requests to partner on that sales tax, specifically from Cortez Fire Protection District, although the municipalities have or at least the municipality of Dolores has indicated interest too. I did want to show these real quick. I reached out to the hospital district to find out what they get off of their 0.4% sales tax. And so each of these deposits that you see for MCHD is their sales tax that's deposited. And we were talking about asking for 1.9. 1.9 divided by 0.4 is 4.75. So if you take their number that they brought in with the .4 of 1.581 million, and you multiply that by 4.75, the yield would be 7.5 million, which is certainly more than the shortfall we have to continue operating. But it would help to address some of the other things that need to be addressed.
Let me stop
Go
you
ahead.
right there, Shaq. So one of the things that I want to talk about that are going to have to be addressed in capital is we made a decision last year to go ahead and do our specifically just for the sheriff's department and then 4 other vehicles that were high mileage vehicles, because we only put $300,000 into capital per year for vehicles. Well, at today's rate, $300,000 doesn't hardly, doesn't get you a lot of vehicles. So we decided to go a different route, which I think is going to work out good for the county, is we're leasing the high mileage vehicles and getting rid of them at 100,000 miles or as close to 100,000 as we can. They buy back the vehicles, and then, anyway, my point is that I think that item, that's an item that's going to have to be significantly increased over the period of years, specifically with the high mileage vehicles. So that's one. And then 2, although we can use bonding, we can do other things with the jail, but that's another big, that's probably going to be anywhere $4 to $8 million ticket item by the time
to
we get
expand it.
addition for the expansion of the jail. Right now, although, well, and then the other thing is we voted in 2021, we decided to keep a 3-month, Kent, right? A reserve,
Yeah, 3 months.
a minimum, just to be fiscally responsible. But we also included every department within the county. So some months we're between $3 and $4 million, and that's about what we have, maybe just a little over that right now as far as our reserve, but we don't have a lot more than that as far as our reserve of the 3 months. So that's a little history there. So I guess really the discussion is, do we really want to move this forward? And if we do, we have 2 requests.
2 requests and 3 options. 1 is just go after it on our own. 2 is to.
Which is a general sales tax, and then 2 is to include a public safety sales tax, a PSST, which is kind of what Montrose did. And if I haven't forwarded you those emails from Commissioner Hanson, I will. And theirs was a 1.75% sales tax, and they did that within the last decade. And that has made a significant difference, and then it highlights what's in there. And then I guess Shaq has also had a request from
the
Dolores.
town of Dolores,
But
which
I
think they've approached you about that as well.
I had a call, and they stated that it was somewhat like La Plata County had done. I haven't had a chance to talk to any commissioners over there. I will call them, but I'll actually be at that board meeting tonight. The municipalities already have a sales tax, so I'm not quite sure where they're approaching us from that point. The public safety, I definitely understand that.
Well, and whether you were to do it as a general sales tax or a public safety sales tax, assuming that that's the direction that this commission wants to go, one item that I think needs to be discussed, we've heard several times the confiscation list that our drug task force had for 2021, and I think the numbers are kind of impressive, but they did that, with just 2 members on the drug task force, and that doesn't count the drugs busted by the city of Cortez or Mancos Marshal's office. And without getting too political on this, if we had the money, I think it makes a lot of sense to increase the size of that drug task force and do more to address the issue. I think that's about the most politically correct way I can say that.
And so I think the important thing for you guys to understand as you weigh whether to go after one of these taxes or which one you want to maybe go after, if any at all, is that if you go after the public safety tax, that money has to be specifically for public safety operations. So you're looking at sheriff's, fire district, the other ones that are defined in there. It's coroner, judicial district, fire protection district, fire department, or any other public entity dedicated to providing services relating to public safety. And so any revenues you raise through the public safety tax are going to be limited into that pot. Now, if you go after a general sales tax, it doesn't mean that you can't use the money that's raised to fund, for instance, the sheriff's office. You're going to have money to spend, but certainly the general county sales tax is going to be more flexible, but there's going to be maybe some appeal to having that specific public safety sales tax in that it's really earmarked for law enforcement type stuff.
Right,
And
so
if
that,
I don't mean it, but if we do call it a public safety sales tax, who do we gather in that net that we cast? Is it all 5 fire districts and ambulance and search and rescue and, there's 2 search and
That's
rescue?
up to you guys.
that's
Okay.
a,
Yep, exactly. That's a question for you guys, and that would really be something that would be on that ballot question specifically.
It would have to be very clearly worded. And Ian, maybe you can give me some clarification on this, but if they say, okay, we're going to raise $7.5 million to go to public safety, and we fund, the fire district, sheriff's office, district attorney, whatever it is, if, is it immoral and ethical not up front if we take some of that money, because we can fund all of those that are our departments for around $6 million. So if we stop funding those out of property taxes, is that deceitful, immoral, unethical?
In other words, you're saying if the county budget, if the county decided to use less of its.
If it passed as a public safety
General
test
fund.
Yep,
to use
less-
less of our mill levy to fund those.
Yeah, I
because
don't,
the cost is
I mean,
less.
I think you could do that because ultimately, I think that, your public safety tax could be used. And the public safety tax statute's really clear. It says you can only retain the amount determined to be necessary by cost analysis, and in no event shall that amount exceed 3 1/3% of the amount collected. And so it is limited. I mean, you have to use.
right, otherwise you're
Yeah,
overtaxing,
exactly.
which we don't want to do anyway.
Yep, exactly.
It
So I
said
guess the
it
first
cannot
question-
exceed 3.5% or 3 1/3 of what?
Of the Department of Revenue can only keep 3 1/3% of the amount collected. But it has to be, the Department of Revenue has to perform on an annual basis an analysis to determine the net incremental cost of such a collection, administration, and enforcement.
Oh,
And so it's like an administration fee for them. But again, we can't overtax. I mean, we've got to,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
correct.
So I guess the first question is, our budget is, and I've said this publicly before, our arrows are going opposite directions. Our costs are going up with inflation and our revenue's going down. The 2 arrows going that way don't work. So then the next question is, we've done the survey, and now we need to start the education component to be able to put this on a ballot, and it has to be, I think the language has to be to Kim by sometime in July. or the end of July.
I think it's ahead
But
of that,
it's
maybe.
coming
Yeah.
pretty quickly. And then which way do we want to go? So whether it's a PSST or an actual general sales tax. I like delineating it because looking at what some of the tax requests in the past have done without it being specifically delineated, I think they fail because they don't want it just going in the general fund, not being earmarked for something. And I think a PSST might be more palatable. And then,
Go ahead.
obviously, the last thing, if we decide we do not want to do it, I know that Commissioner Stevenson was on board when we had these conversations last year when we were looking at the budget, but to be fair to you, Commissioner Copenhaver, we need to kind of have this budget discussion with you now.
And I want to tag on two things there. Should the board decide that they do want to go forward with this, I don't believe we can use any general fund dollars to fund outreach and education.
That's
you
that's
can't.
correct. because
Absolutely
that's-
Yeah.
That is part of the statute
Yeah.
also.
Yep, that's a rule.
So,
I mean, the way it used to be explained to me, which was very simple, you cannot use taxpayer dollars to support or oppose any tax initiative.
Yep, and you don't want employees going out while they're on the job
Right.
campaigning for this thing. You can't do that.
You can't use a copier.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, you can't use paper.
It's gotta be completely separate.
it's a separate,
Right.
yeah, it's specific, so.
And then the other thing I want to say is, we're going to be having this discussion a lot about what exactly we can hack out of this budget, because even if the commission decides to put this on the ballot, there's no guarantee it's going to pass.
Right.
And so we're still going to be responsible to the taxpayers to figure out how to make it work.
So that's a real quick synopsis of, we have opposing arrows as far as increasing costs and decreasing revenue. And then if you want to take a look at this and then ask questions, here again are the proposed salaries from the survey. The reason we did this survey is because our neighboring counties, La Plata County, we compete with all the time, and we're losing the people. I think we said we had a 20%
Attrition rate. yeah.
attrition rate last year. So we're training. and we're
Several of those
losing
went to La Plata County.
20% of our personnel, whether it's to the city of Cortez, La Plata County, we're losing them, so we're training grounds and we're losing a ton of money. And that's why the survey was put together to kind of see where, where we had a minimum, a medium, and a maximum for the entire county.
And I would say that generally speaking, certainly some positions would fall above this and some would fall below it, but most county employees prior to this were 13 to 17%, paid less, 13 to 17% less than their peers in similar sized counties, which everybody is having problems with staffing now, so it is definitely an employee's market. So that's the 3,000-foot overview of the discussion we need to have. I guess the first thing would be getting guidance on, do we want to even ask the voters for a sales tax? If so, which sales tax which way do we want to approach it? And it sounds like from Ian, if we say public safety, we've got to put some real numbers out there of what exactly it's costing to run public safety, which I would think would mean, Ian, correct me if I'm wrong on this, if we're going to cast that net to help some of those other struggling public safety districts, we're going to have those numbers solidified from them as well, if that's what we're asking for.
Yep.
Which the only thing that we have right now is what CPFD has done for us. But we haven't from the other 4 fire districts. So we do have their proposal. but we don't have anything from anybody else. And obviously theirs, from the presentation they gave us, they are the largest of volume of calls. They're a little over 3,200, I believe, if I remember correctly. And some like Pleasant View were only like less than 150. So there's a significant difference between the call volume.
Shaq, would we include dispatch in that? Could we include dispatch in that?
It's emergency
Yeah,
services, so I would
I think we can. It's a very broad net because public safety, it has to go to a public safety organization. And what the statute says is that's a law enforcement agency or office, a district attorney's office, a judicial district, a coroner's office, a fire protection district, a fire department, or any other public entity dedicated to providing services related to public safety, public health, or emergency management at the county or local level. And
That was a
so,
$$45,000 bill?
yep,
347?
Correct, which that could be part of that public
Right.
safety. So that's one, and let me bring another, one more thing to your attention, which is in the legislature right now, is, I didn't get to go over this with you guys yet, but this was on Friday too. So the coroners have a bill introduced, and it, actually I talked to Shaq about this the other day, while I was up there, I was asking what kind of a county, I couldn't remember if we're category 3 or category 4.
3.
But they are also asking to be placed as full-time employees instead of part-time employees. And it's called Senate Bill 22065. It's for the modification of county coroner salaries. It is permissive, well, it would be permissive for category 3 and category 4 counties, but not for category 1 and 2. So then this is pulling, it would adjust their salaries to a full-time county coroner only, and the bill increases in salary of newly elected or re-elected county coroners to match the salaries of the county treasurer. So just that one right there would be basically 100% salary increase. It sounds like this is going to pass, which is just one more 100% salary increase that's going to now be modified by statute. So I didn't get the opportunity to finish that with you guys, but I'll bring it up to you right now. That's Senate Bill 22065, and that was discussed on Friday also. So I guess Commissioner Copenhaver, we're here to answer any of your questions, and
I just want to reiterate that this discussion today is probably going to be every workshop moving forward either way, because regardless of whether the sales tax gets on the ballot, we have no guarantee that it'll pass. We've still got to look at everything we can possibly cut, because we got to have a budget for next year, whether it passes or not.
So how much is, would you say it's gonna raise? I mean, with the 1.75 or?
With 1.9, it would raise 7.5 million.
yeah, 7.5 million.
Right now, we're spending 4 million more than we're taking in. So it would be more than enough to make up our loss in revenue, and then to plan for those other projects that Commissioner Candelaria was talking about as well. If we only want to make up our lost revenue and not include other districts and not plan for further projects, we could go after a lesser sales tax.
yeah, but I think that if we're gonna do the public safety tax,
That has to be
it's
specific
it's
to
gotta be
what the
specific to
cost
public safety, so
is
we
to
can't
public safety.
use money that we raise there and earmark it for other projects.
But you can use it for expanding the jail, which is going to be one of the biggest projects.
You could use it for that, yep.
And I guess that's, I think when one of you guys built that jail, that thing was designed so that it was expandable with however those wings are, so that it's a more cost-effective to us, which is good thinking
It was
on the front
designed, it was
side.
designed to handle 3 more pods.
And I think that, you know, sooner than later, we're probably gonna have to have another pod. We just did our jail inspection the other day. You guys can see what they're already handling right now. And you add another pod, and it's gonna create even more, more personnel just to handle the pod. So, you know, with just that,
I figure, and this, don't hold me to this, but I figure the cost of 1 pod is probably gonna easily exceed the cost of the total building at the one time, just to add 1 pod
well,
now.
because building costs right now
Yeah.
are probably the worst they've ever been. So, I don't know if you have, I mean, you get a lot to sit and think about now. That's just kind of like Shaq said, a 30,000-foot overview.
Well, and we don't have a whole lot of time to think about it, and either way, we've got to
We-
do the cuts for next year's budget.
Correct, and no matter what, we have to start looking at what are we gonna cut for next year, whether it passes or whether it doesn't, and it's not a conversation that any of us really wanna have, but it's a conversation that we need to start.
I'm actually going to start
Definitely thinking about it.
structuring our workshops around that, where my thought is to bring in one department at a time and just go through their budget with them. And
I would float this proposal that our next work session, it's decision time. We have to make up our mind if we're gonna do this. If not, then we don't have to, you know, go further. But if the next decision that needs to be made is if we're gonna go just a regular sales tax or a public safety sales tax. And I figure we have all these decisions made by the end of March.
I'm gonna look to you because
You know,
It's
I don't
short
have
for
any,
you.
I don't have any problem putting this out there, because the people they can decide. That's gonna be up to them.
Yeah.
They can decide one way or another. But I think if we're gonna do the public safety part of it, we ought to delineate,
Where it's going.
well, where it's going, not
But
only
who-
where it's
who
going and
to?
why we need it for the
Yeah.
jail and that sort of thing. But of that 1.9, or whatever we decide we're gonna ask for,
the dollar figure.
1% for the county, 1% for the public safety part of it. And specifically what that's gonna go to, you've got to have those projects
Right.
lined
I
up.
So-
think there's 2 things.
Montrose, when they did it, the email that I read, they did theirs, obviously off of their numbers. 0.75 of theirs went specifically to the sheriff's department. So we can make that determination looking at the numbers also.
I mean, I think if you have this delineated out, we're gonna do this because we need to add that pod on there in order to do these sort of things, I think we stand a lot better chance of it passing.
I do too.
I mean, you got to have specific things you're gonna do with that money for them to pass, because if you just go out there with your hand out, they're not gonna tell you no.
RE1 school district has proved that many times in a
yeah.
row.
And I agree, that's
I
why I
totally
would
agree with that.
lean more to the PSST, other than the general sales tax, because general, it's, like you said, it's just the flexibility is all within us, and I don't think people care to do that anymore, and I would agree with them. So,
I can,
And just as another option, and I'm not saying one's better than the other, I just think it's important that you guys understand. I mean, we can craft a ballot question for a general sales tax that explains what sort of things we're looking at. Now, it's not going to be as delineated, obviously, as a public safety tax, because a public safety tax by statute is very clearly defined. This is what you have to spend it on. But if you guys decided to do the general sales tax route, we can still say in our ballot question, a sales tax to support X, Y, Z, you know, and try to work that into the ballot language. And I think that would be important.
Trying to figure. You know, I've been thinking about how to make this thing work, you know, to make it pass and stuff. I think I don't know. This is just something I was running through. I think if we even put, like if we said, we need to do this for 5 years.
Sunset it in 5 years?
Sunset it in 5 years to be revisited at that time, where we're at, because if Kinder Morgan comes back, we may be.
Yeah, that's in my notes.
I
What if
mean,
Kinder Morgan comes back?
I'm just trying to think of ways to make it more feasible, more palatable for people.
Well, that's what we did
I agree with that.
that's what we did on the previous jail. We sunsetted the tax at a certain period.
That was like
And
20 years
we
or
actually
something,
paid it off
We
in
paid it
half
off
the
ahead
time.
of time and got out of that and could drop that sooner.
I agree with
We saved the
that.
taxpayers millions of dollars by paying that thing off early and getting out of that thing.
Yes.
However, if you run it as a public safety sales tax, we would have to be very careful to educate any other districts who are going to help with it, not to get dependent on it. Make your capital purchases and be done with it.
I don't know. I would just throw that out there as a possibility. Something that would be more palatable to get it passed, get us through this period.
To put a sunset clause on it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how you can get it done.
Well, I think the biggest education component is going to be having these workshops, because we're going to now start talking about what's going to get cut.
Yeah.
And when you start having to cut a few $1 million out of your budget, it's
Yeah.
going to affect everybody out there.
Well, and the things that get cut, I feel, are really going to irritate people, because I think when you come to really slashing the budget, you've got to look at what is the role of government to do with the people's money. And we've got to provide for defense, we've got to provide for commerce, and we've got to provide infrastructure. And if it doesn't fall into that, it can be cut.
Basically, health, safety, and welfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't fall
Pretty
into that,
much.
Yeah.
it can be
So-
cut. But that's the extra stuff that everybody in the community likes.
So I would agree with you, Commissioner Lindsay, that we should decide at least by next week. Commissioner Copenhagen will give you another week to think about this, but we're now running out of time just because of the circumstances that we're in. I think we need to have a unanimous decision of which way we go or we don't go. And I agree with you. Put it out to the people and let them decide, because they're going to ultimately decide anyway. And if they say no, then we've already worked a budget up that says, okay, well, we're going to cut X, Y, Z, and this is the reason why. Because we can't have opposing arrows with the budget.
So we've got three decisions to make then. Sales tax, yes or no? If yes, then what kind? And once we decide what kind, will you sunset it?
Or are you ready to make any decisions tomorrow on any of those, or put them on the agenda for the following Tuesday?
I guess, to me, I don't have any problem doing this, okay? I don't, because back when I was commissioner before, we were putting all that money away because we figured someday Kinder Morgan was gonna go away. And we were gonna be in a hell of a wreck,
Yeah.
because they're paying 50-some% of the tax. And that's why we were putting all that money back. Well, sorry, but I think that was more important than building some of the things we've built since then, personally. I mean, I just think we squandered a bunch of money that we should have been trying to do something different with, but that's under the bridge. I have no problem doing this. I just, in order to get people, for it to be more palatable, I think we should have these projects that we say we're going to do with this money, what we're going to do with the jail or whatever we're going to do. And I personally think that if you have a sunset on it, that someday that they can revisit this thing, whether to keep it up or not keep it up at that time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I think it is way more palatable for people to accept. If you just put it there forever, then it's harder for them to accept
You guys
that.
did 20 years, right, on the
Yeah,
jail?
we did 20 years.
And then you paid it off in
half that
Half?
time.
We
Yeah.
paid it off
Which
in
is-
half that time and saved, I forget how
Oh,
many
yeah.
million dollars
little
it was.
saved.
I mean, it just,
Yeah, it
we
was a
just paid it
ton of
off.
money.
and
If I remember
got-
right, it was a $5.5 million project financed over, and back then, interest rates were high. You know, we floated a
Yeah, it was
bond.
high.
We had to ask twice. You know, we had to.
For the bond?
Yes.
To get the bond twice.
And
yeah.
what sold it was the sunset clause,
Yeah. And-
because
and-
the first one didn't have a sunset on
Yeah, and the next
So-
one did, and it passed.
it. Yeah,
You know, and that's why I think if we did it that way, it would get us to, I think our chances are way better. I mean,
And I don't-
that's just my personal gut feeling that our chances are better if we have some kind of sunset on.
I don't disagree with that either, because then we get
I don't-
the things that are facing us right now up front. We get those built, we get them put into play, and hopefully we can pay for it sooner than later. So it sounds like we could actually, Shaq, maybe put this under unfinished business, if that's appropriate for tomorrow, Ian.
And, well, and ultimately, we're gonna have to, I mean, if you guys do decide to go with either one of the sales tax options, we need to do it by resolution. And so I can get a resolution drafted up. I can try to get something by tomorrow.
Okay, well, if not, the next week, if you don't have it.
Okay.
Does the resolution need to include the ballot language?
No.
Okay.
But, yeah, what I would suggest, I guess I would suggest if it's something you guys want to do, I think it probably would be best to public notice it on the agenda, put that we're going to have this discussion about this resolution, then I can get the resolution typed up, distributed to you guys, so maybe a week from tomorrow might be best.
Okay, well then,
Yeah.
does that, so
Yeah.
a week from tomorrow, so tomorrow's
The
the
8th.
first, the 8th.
Okay.
Because ultimately, yeah, the taxpayers are gonna decide,
Well,
and,
I just think that if you have some,
no, I agree. I hear
I think it'll
exactly what you're
be, I think it
saying.
will be way more palpable.
kind of like term limits.
And if we get to the point where, and when Montezuma County gets to the point where it's gonna sunset, they can also, it could be continued. You know, I
Discuss it
mean,
at that point
it's a
in
lot
time.
easier to continue that. I just think that if we make it more palatable, it's gonna have way better chance of getting through.
And the other thing too is the education component of letting people know. Right now, what bothers me is that the property owners bear every cost associated with
Governing.
alcohol,
Yes.
tobacco,
Roads,
roads,
Jail.
100%.
Judicial.
And Amazon, FedEx, everybody are using these roads on a daily basis, and we collect no taxes off of anything that's being purchased, and just the property owners are paying for everything. I just,
You don't need to tell me, you should see how they stack on my tax bill. Some
Yeah, no, so-
idiot won't quit buying land, you know? so-
we're not talking about property tax, we're trying to get some of that burden off of the property owners and putting it onto to the people as a sales tax, so we're not even discussing
Well,
property taxes,
and
we're
we
discussing
have hundreds
sales
of
taxes.
thousands of people that come to visit our county, Mesa Verde and Phil's World and Canyons of the Ancients, and while they do contribute to the local economy, they do not contribute to the services or infrastructure of the county.
No.
Correct, and I guess that's where my real big rub is that
Yeah.
our property owners are paying for 100% of everything, and
Fire, EMS, Sheriff's Department, they're all stressed by this, but they don't get any of the profitability off of those people coming through.
I guess
So-
the other clarification that I'll need is whether to prepare a resolution for a public safety tax or a general sales tax, or I can do both. And you guys can have both, and then you can
why
make a
don't you,
motion.
why don't you prepare both, and that gives you another week to think about it. I like it being more specific, like Montrose did as a PSST, because then we say it's going to everything that you said in the statute.
Yep.
And that way, it's very clear, and I think if you put it in the general fund, it becomes so flexible that they're like, I mean, that would be the first question I ask, is, well, where are you spending it? I mean, and I think they have the right to know, and I think that would be even more palatable also by putting a sunset on it.
I'll prepare both, and then you
Prepare
guys
both.
can have the option.
So
Okay.
if we do put it, if you do pass it as a public safety, then you could only use it in those departments, but those departments, we wouldn't have to fund as much.
Right.
Out of the
Out of-
general
Out of-
fund.
Yeah,
out
To
of
make
the
up that
property
difference
tax,
in the
yeah.
difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So, and that, I mean, I guess I don't have any problem doing it that way, as long as we're gonna be able to.
I
Make
think
that work.
specifically when we look at funding the sheriff's office, though, in addition to, expanding the jail or whatever, and we could defer to Steve and his input on this, I think we need to increase our number of deputies and our drug task force, for sure.
well,
See,
that-
I think we could put all that out there, that we're gonna expand the jail, we're gonna have to increase
the staffing,
the staff at the jail, plus, put that we're gonna increase the drug task force in order to cut down on all this
Cut down on our
drug
problem.
problems. I mean, I don't have any problem doing it that way, that's fine, as far as I'm concerned, just so we can make it work. But I just think if we do have some kind of a sunset on it, we'll have a way better chance of making this thing work.
That's a good
I would,
point.
I
Pay
think,
off of the pot on the jail and do these specific things that we're gonna do with it, I think would be,
I think then, Ian, you just draft them both with just like you guys did with the 20-year sunset and,
Well, and ultimately, that sunset clause would be something that would go on to the ballot.
correct.
And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
the resolution is just expressing your intent to go for this, and
Okay.
then we'll work through the ballot language, and that'll be the next step.
Ian, if we go after the public safety, we got to have some real specific numbers. Would we have to have a quote on what it would take to put another pot on the jail, or would we just have to have a rough estimate? How specific does it have to get?
I mean, I think a rough estimate would be fine. Again, I think it's really, I mean, I think it's another piece. It's like how specific do you want to get with your ballot language? I mean, and we've talked about it. You guys obviously think the more specific, the better, and I can certainly appreciate that too.
Could you send me Montroses again?
I think the ballot
I'd like to-
language that they said was just that 0.75 out of the 1.75 that they received, 0.75 went strictly to the sheriff's department. And then the rest, the other 1%, then they cut it up between all those other, the DA, the so on and so forth. Because really, as we're looking at it right now, that's gonna be our biggest chunk of this, $345,000 just for dispatch fees. If we get the other pot and we're spending another 5 million, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of money in a hurry. So I like their language. I did send that email to Greg Felson. He was supposed to reach out to the group that helped Montrose get theirs done, Shaq, and I don't know where that lies, but
I'll follow up
I
on
will
that
send
tomorrow.
that email when I get to a PC where I can actually
Or to-
send it to both of you guys of how that was addressed.
What's that?
Okay?
All right.
And then any questions you have, I know you may want to look at this more, but,
Well, he's had it for a few weeks. He's had the
I've been
opportunity
looking
to
through it.
go
well,
Hasn't memorized it yet.
you're doing good in a few weeks because it took us several discussions to get there. And then also too, I don't know if you were able to see this, but I'm going to put this out of my book and I'll give these to you. A lot of it's my
Okay.
my
Yeah.
chicken scratching, so if you don't understand my chicken scratching,
Oh, I'm sure I'll understand it. I can read yours. Mine, I can't read sometimes.
and my budget book always stays here because anytime I have a budget number, I have to reach back there because
Yeah.
I can't remember it off the top of my head. Any other questions, gentlemen?
No.
Okay, well then I guess we are, that was all we had, right, Shaq?
That's it. That
Okay.
wasn't enough?
That's a pretty big discussion right there that's gonna continue, so.
Yeah.
Be thinking about the cuts that, again, we need to be prepared where we need to cut. Okay, I'll see you gentlemen tomorrow morning. We are adjourned.